Hey, hey, I wasn't going to get on and do a stream today, but it was it was an awesome day. The there's two particular people in my life right now that are just they're coming through for me as far as just being really easy people to bounce ideas off of and, helping me learn how to think again and not be afraid of what I'm going to say. Um, I was just thinking about media training and how how you're prepared to speak to reporters. And this is exactly why I'm practicing these. Um, and I'm not deleting my videos, my old videos, because even though I know I'm putting my foot in my mouth and I'm just speaking off the cuff, um, I think this has been a really important practice for me because I am learning how to think again, and that was um, you know, for me, I just was so stuck in my conditioning of trying to be a people pleaser that all I could think about was being so careful of what I say so that I wouldn't offend people. And I do think that's important because I want people to feel comfortable with me. And I don't want to lose that. Um, I don't want to be this hard person. Uh, but because I've been so naive in my life, um, it's just I'm trying to find that harmony with having boundaries, and still being, approachable. And that's something you have to gauge from moment to moment, and I just appreciate these 2 friends in particular that have been just showing up and allowing me to get comfortable again, expressing myself openly and formulating these ideas, and, I hope that I can build my, skills up to presenting really solid information, but right now I'm in a place where I am just learning how to think and I'm learning how to be mentally tough. And that's something that's been hard for me because I would just be so stuck in, like, trying to please everything and do everything right, but I would hit a wall and then just become incapacitated. And lately, I've been finding the great opportunity in challenges and in constraint, and I'm learning to laugh at the challenges as much as I can. Um, and that's been very rewarding. Anyway, I busted my ass yesterday. Literally, I fainted. I stood up too fast and walked over to our backyard sliding door off of the kitchen, and I think I closed the door partially, and then I just dropped to the ground, and my kids were playing outside, and I just remember waking up to my daughter being like, "Are you okay? I saw you fall." And so I don't think I was out for too long. She's 9, so she could tell me, like, what she saw and everything. She could explain what she saw, but it was really scary because I do tend my children, when my husband's at work, and I tend my nieces and nephews. So it just was a big, um, big moment of awakening for me because I wanted to make sure that I uh, knew what probably was the cause. It probably was just standing up and getting dizzy. That low blood pressure that can happen with that, but also just staying hydrated and being mindful. And it was a good opportunity for me to talk to my oldest, who's capable of understanding how to call emergency or, run to the neighbors if something were to happen. Just so she's prepared mentally. If that ever happened and it was worse, and God forbid I had actually hit my head and cracked my head open or whatever and not been able to wake up, I just I just wanted to remind her, hey, if that were worse, these are the things you could do, and then you can um, be prepared. And so for me, I'm trying to do the same thing. And I've been on this journey of exploring plants and working with plants. And it's been very rewarding. It's something that's made me feel very empowered because if something arises, I don't immediately have to worry as much because it's like, oh, I know that there's certain plants that I've worked with before, and sometimes it just intuitively I know, like, oh, I feel like this is what may be able to help me. And then I usually go and do some cross-checking, some references. Um, but all of these plants I'm working with, they're edible anyways, and I'm not taking like a heroic dose of something. It's all very like I have a really good book by Rosemary Gladstar that's herbal remedies for children. And so that's a good framing of like they're they're very mild plants. You're going to have anyone might be allergic to one thing or another. But when you're talking about certain gentle herbs like chamomile and you know things that are easily tolerated by almost anyone generally, um, these are some of my favorite plant allies to keep keep in stock. And so I would definitely look up uh, some of the medicinal and traditional uh, remedies made with plants that you're already familiar with. Things that you already like the taste of. Um, and then you can go from there because these plants really do have a lot to teach us. And I truly believe that. It's not like we just say, oh, this plant is good for this or that. I think uh, that's something I'm discovering through some studies of animism and working with the plants in a way in which you respect their personhood. You respect that they are more than just good for something. Um, and it's kind of a good way to think of anyone else. Uh, Speaking of individual rights and the sovereignty of other living beings, and I think we should include plants and animals and humans. And so that's why I just find it, uh, Josh said, reductionist. A lot of these thoughts I'm having, they they follow the teachings from Josh Williams, whom I've mentioned before, and if you've never watched my videos before, um, Josh Williams has an herb shop in Salt Lake City called Green Thread Apothecary, and I just really appreciate his approach. Uh, he's he's just got a lot of really wonderful things to say, and so I don't wanna just be repeating what he's saying, but he has been a huge influence on me over the last few years, and in particular, um, I think just in the last few months, I've been feeling a really strong connection with Josh because he's opened up a new community of a forum, a membership forum. So I've just been thriving in that environment, and I pretty much signed up with his membership forum. He calls it the Grove, and please message me or do a comment if you happen to watch this video and you want to know more about that. But I started the Grove just around the same time I started doing the videos on my Kate Godina channel. And so it's not been long. It's been about a month and a half or so, but it's definitely been useful for me in so many ways because it's encouraged me to embrace the abundance that's around me. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in thinking, we're in a time of scarcity. And but there's an ebb and a flow all the time. So that ebb state, perhaps that's important. And we need not think that we're being lazy. We can embrace those times in which we're not actively accomplishing a lot. It's like I think of the state of depression as when you just don't you just don't give the fucks anymore. And that's okay, I think. And I think we've really done a lot of harm to the collective human psyche with the attempt to quantify everything. We just can't do that. It's too reductionist. Uh, we need inclusion, and we need to stop inventing these. At times, yes, you need to create some new language and all of that. But what I'm saying is, like, I think this would be something good to read. I'm gonna keep this anonymous because I just pulled this off of my Facebook, so I won't mention who this is. But this is sort of a This is sort of an important topic for me because I desperately wanna be inclusive of people, including the plants and the animals. So I'll just read this. It's kind of a transcript of a speech, so it's not exactly how it was spoken, but, um, I think this person is about 12 years old, but I won't tell you anything about them. So, I'm a transgender girl, but before I was a girl, I was non-binary for a while. Why is it important to respect and care for our not just trans youth, but all trans people? When I was first coming out, I didn't want people to know I was trans. I wanted to be known as a cis girl, I wanted this because I was scared. I would be hated, scared I wouldn't have a normal life. Let that sink in. I was afraid to be myself. This is why we need respect by our government and society. We need this to change now. I was lucky. I got a very supportive mom and friend group. I get to roam freely, and I'm still scared. But I have a lot of transgender related insecurities. Imagine how hard it can be for people who get bullied and abused for who they are or want to be. I am so very thankful for all the people I have, but we can do better towards those who are less fortunate. The hardest part of being transgender for me personally, and this is another person saying this, is not doubting yourself. I wish I had listened to this advice when I first heard it. Just because you made the transition, you don't have to change every little thing about you. Don't worry how feminine you walk, how masculine you walk. You are still you. This doesn't mean you shouldn't change your insecurities. In fact, if it really bugs you, change it and don't beat yourself up for it. Also, no one actually notices every little detail about you. It doesn't matter how much you pass. Some cis women still get called sir on the phone. It just happens. In the end, the major takeaway is to take your time. You don't need to rush any of it, no matter how long you take. Being trans can be quite challenging. You have a lot of hurdles to cross, but you can and will make them. Even though there is far too much transphobia out there, it will change. Be strong, be proud of how far you've come, and go farther. I ask this whether you are an ally or a transgender folk, spread kindness no matter how much negativity comes your way. Have grace, and most importantly, be yourself no matter how hard it is. Find people whom you feel safe with. Get a supportive social circle and take care of yourself. Right now, I ask you to love and to support your trans folk as an ally or as one yourself. So that's a beautiful message. Okay, I love that message, and that's why I felt it was really important to just read it verbatim because, my issue is, like, you could replace the trans part, and you could say, what's hard about living in Utah as a non-Mormon is what's hard about having divorced parents that have completely opposite political points of view straddling that. You know, I could say what's hard about being disabled, what's hard about being obese, what's hard about being a single mom, what's hard about whatever. So I mean, that's what I mean about inclusion. Now, I want people to be able to identify themselves for how they feel identified. But I'm just worrying so much about this idea that we are putting too much stock into the like this curated persona. I'm definitely guilty of this. I got a boob job when I was 19 because I was insecure. Um, so there's just a lot that's running through my head right now about all these topics. It always has. It's always challenged me. And I think in a positive way because I think it's kept me open. And that's allowed so many diverse, interesting people in my life to come into my life because I've had this my eyes open. And okay, I'm going to say this because it's funny. You know, Nowadays the big thing that comes out is like, "Oh yeah, like I'm white and I have black friends." So I'm going to tell you like, yeah, I have a couple black friends. Not many. There are just not that many in my community. And I haven't made a huge effort to put myself out there to specifically make friends with, someone of a particular race, but I was at work last year and I had a whole crew sheet. I was an AD on a set. So I was the one keeping track of the 30 or so people that were on shift, and I knew everybody on the list except for the one photographer. And I had seen her around, but we're in a dark studio. Like, I finally, when she walked by me, I just said, "Hey, like, you must be so and so." And she's like, "Well, yes." And it happens that she's a Black female, and we're working in a really white town because I live near Salt Lake City, which is a little more diverse than up in Logan, up in Cache County. And when you go outside of Salt Lake County, you see the lack of diversity uh in these more rural communities. It's just how it is. It's just how it is out here. And Salt Lake, you appreciate that it does have a lot more diversity than elsewhere in the state. Now, these are just generalizations, okay? But what I'm getting at is this woman here at work, she's like, "You're the first person that said hello to me." And she just started work for this company that week. And no one had said hello to her yet. But I just felt really awful because I'm like, "Shit, that sucks." But I'm so glad I said hi to her, you know? And I feel we became really quick friends. Um, and I've always tried to keep an eye out for the person in the room, no matter what they look like or their characteristics or whatever. I've always tried to look out for the person that, that I don't know yet. And I just think, the diversity in your friends group, it comes when you're just keeping your eyes out. You're looking for opportunities um to make eye contact with somebody that looks like, "Oh, well, I don't know you yet. Who are you? Hi, how are you?" And it's not to other them, you know? It's not like I'm trying to collect a whole diverse group of friends so that I can virtue signal that, yeah, I'm friends with everybody. But I don't know. I just keep thinking about this idea because there's a little girl from Utah that was 9 years old, um, a young Black girl, autistic. Um, Her family said that she killed herself because she was being bullied at school. And the school district that was just a news article, I believe, in the Salt Lake Tribune today. Today's April 1st, 2022. That said an independent investigation says there was no evidence of bullying of this girl. And I just thought it I just thought this situation is so fucking sad because with my own kids experience at public school, luckily I got them out. I'm so glad. Actually sent them to public school because they said they wanted to go, but they realized they hated it. Now my daughter was really terrified the first few weeks of school to even tell me that she was being bullied. And she had a few different instances where it was like, to her, it was like so subtle. I don't think she even knew that it was overt bullying, because she was like, "Man, this kid, he's like, he tried to poke a pencil in my ear." And I'm like, "What?" And, the teacher didn't see it, and he was a really good guy. Like, but I just don't think it's even possible to observe even a fraction of the crap that goes on. I can barely keep track of the tit for tat stuff my 2 kids are going through. Um, it's like once the first punch is thrown, everything's out the window. I always tell them, like, if they can't resolve it themselves, like, and I do want kids to learn how to be able to stand up for themselves, but at the same time, I don't wanna send them to the wolves. So I'll intervene when things start to sound really bad. Um, I don't just let them fight it out, but I always tell them, "Hey, if somebody's doing something you don't like, first you ask them not to, then you tell them if they do it again, you will tell somebody." But it's so hard if you're a kid and you're just getting, like, poked with a pencil or getting pinched. My daughter was getting pinched under her arm, and she had bruises, and her cousin noticed, and that's how it came to my attention after a few weeks. So I'm not sure if it's just that because I know my daughter feels very comfortable telling me things, but I think part of it was she didn't really even know she was being bullied, like, because it wasn't so overt. And so what are bully tactics that are not overt? There's plenty of them right now on social media. So I don't think parents now that are on social media that are bullying other people into submission, um, I don't think they have the right to tell me what bullying is and what it isn't. Because they've forgotten that bully tactics can be seemingly like just maybe saying, "Oh, well, if you got us a toy, we would stop pinching you." Because she's not getting pushed down on the playground. These overt things aren't happening to her. Now, this is my high school sweatshirt. I don't think I owned this when I actually attended high school. I think I bought it after I graduated. But it's still old. But oh my god, I just started to have these memories of how I was bullied in ninth grade. And it was really simple. It was really sneaky stuff. I was on swim team, and one afternoon practice, my glasses and my towel disappeared. And I had a band concert that evening, and I didn't have my regular glasses, so I had to wear freaking prescription sunglasses because I couldn't read the music. So, I'm in the band concert, and the first chair, senior girl, I'm warming up, and I'm kind of having a stressful day, and I was doing warm up, and I kind of just I did like a squawk. I played the tenor saxophone. And so tenor saxophones are like if you're playing it correctly, it sounds out of tune. Um, but no, I mean, I'm just goofing off in my warm up, and this senior first chair girl, she punches me, and I was just so shocked. I'm just like, what the fuck? Um, so yeah, but I had blocked this memory out. I mean, I, like, sometimes remember it, but I'd forgotten that this, like, all happened in the same day. And I go back to swim practice the following morning, and I find my towel sitting on top of my locker, and I go to pull it down, and it's shredded. And I just thought, "What the hell?" But I couldn't tell anybody. I probably cried to my mom about it, but I couldn't tell my band teacher, I couldn't tell my swim coach. I wasn't gonna tell administrators, I couldn't even I couldn't even reconcile what was happening. I was just like, "Ugh," and that had nothing to do with me, uh, personally. Those issues were on those mean girls. There was, like, nothing I could have done to escape that. I coulda kissed their ass, whatever. I could have been totally nice, but it's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a threat, right? I'm a threat." And so when you are really comfortable and confident, you are also very subject to bullying. Um, and I realized that's what was going on with my daughter because she has just this awesome personality. And I think that's a threat to a lot of people, um, that don't feel as good about themselves. So I think a lot of these bullies, um, they are really sad people. And so as much as like I don't want to tolerate bullies and I'm going to stand up for that stuff if I see it, it just gets me thinking about how anywhere you are on the spectrum, whether you look at somebody and they look like they're picture perfect, we really do not know what they're going through, and they could be totally putting on a face, and maybe that's why they need to look physically perfect all the time. I used to kind of make fun of that kind of personality because maybe I was jealous of the efforts they would make for grooming. So, maybe it made me feel lazy, made me feel slobby, made me feel gross to see like other other really done up beautiful people. But after high school, I realized some of these girls that I really thought had it all together, had it all perfect. I thought they were Miss Popularity. They were the ones that ended up having eating disorders, some severe issues. And then, come to find out there were plenty of girls that were jealous of me that thought, I had it all perfect and I didn't. I was super depressed and snarky and sarcastic and didn't do well academically and um ended up really graduating by the skin of my teeth and luckily had already gotten accepted into a state school and had parents willing to pay tuition because I was not going to get a scholarship for academics or swimming. So, or band. So, yeah, I kind of just ended up being this burnout kid that, you know, on if you look at it on one hand, I squandered a lot of my potential, um, because I cared a lot about how I was perceived, but then I couldn't actually live up to it. I couldn't pretend to be perfect. So, yeah, I think, that message from this young person, that was a rally in Salt Lake City for trans folks. And, I think it's important for communities to come together and to support each other and however they identify themselves and everything. But I just wonder if sometimes if we're going to separate everybody into these subjects, like my friend from work, she's a female Black photographer. she just got a job with the NHL, and I'm so proud of her. That really is a breakthrough because there's never been a Black female photographer working for the NHL. But I just wish we didn't have to have these qualifications, you know? Um, it's like somehow that does diminish it, just in a way. That's my feeling, you know? And I think that's what people are feeling when they're talking about um someone participating in a sport that used to be segregated by gender, and then, you know, people are like, "Well, wait, that's obviously someone who at one point in their lives was dubbed male, and now they're dubbing themselves female." And I fully respect that. But I can also see why people will be challenged by that, because it does appear to be like a threat. Um, it's a threat against, what they can comprehend in their brains, and all of us are really needing to acknowledge that we're pretty hardened in our ways. Um, and you don't even have to be in your 30s or 40s to be, or older, to be hardened in your ways. So my herbalist friend Josh, and the wordsmith that he is, um, just a wonderful person all around. And he says, sometimes you got to get your brain to be a little squishy again. And I think that's awesome. It's like that's when you're able to think outside your box. You're able to break through some of your biases, like recognize what your triggers were, recognize, okay, this shit makes me mad. And I'm going to acknowledge that. And if I'm really doing my work on myself and I'm really learning how to be accountable to myself, first and foremost, that you can't be accountable to anyone else until you're accountable to yourself, I think. And so having a little bit of squishy brain, that's going to allow us to be more accountable for ourselves, but it's going to take the work of those, out there that might be listening to me. And, you could definitely call me out on a number of things, but it's like, maybe check your own triggers first and do some work on listening to someone else's perspective, because you may not be that far off. It might just be like one click out of focus. Like you could be really close. But the problem is we decide like this is what makes us different. And so because you don't see things from my perspective, you can't weigh in on the issue. And I just think that really takes away from the greater opportunities, to celebrate each other. Like I would just love to call my friend a fantastic photographer and not have to call her this and this photographer. But that's just my processing right now, because there's just these things popping up in the world that I feel like it's worthy of speaking to. So, yeah, thanks for just watching this evolve, and that's why I'm going to leave all the videos up, basically to get blasted. I mean, like, I don't want them to get deleted. I really hope they don't, because I'm not going to take them down. even though I've wanted to a dozen different times, I've been embarrassed and, like, um, it's that, like, buyer's remorse, like, "Oh, shit," "Did I get myself into something that I'm not ready to pay for later?" Like, I do have these worries, um, but in a way, I feel like if the people that really wanna do this work with me, um, they'll take the time to go back and watch that there is evolution possible in a rather short time, and so we just need to stop shaming ourselves so that we stop shaming others, and we can admit mistakes and not have that be the opportunity for somebody to then jump all over us. I would always call this throwing yourself under the bus. Because it seems like our society is so trained to reward lies, and because there's so much of a need to, protect ourselves that we hide a lot of truths, and I don't wanna be so naive that I'm just 100% vulnerable all the time. I definitely wanna find that place where I'm able to create boundaries. One of my boundaries is I don't want my kids on videos. Um But I would feel very comfortable with them watching these videos. In fact, that's exactly what these videos are actually for, is for myself and for my children to be able to look back because, that was one of my great regrets is, I didn't get to, live in Utah from the time of 5 to 14, and so I really missed out on being close with my cousins and my grandparents, and then my grandfather died, and it just still wrecks me that um I don't have a lot of records of him, and I think, you know, the last 2 years have been terrifying because we've been under this constant, threat of like, "Oh, you know, you're gonna die," and then the messaging around, vaccinations, like, uh, it's been total bully tactics to coerce people and to shame them, and it feels awful. It feels awful because, like, I did not want to admit how much I loved the work that I got to do because, for one, before vaccines were available, um, there was a time where the NBA was just on break, and then when they resumed, they did their little stint. They played some games down in Florida in the bubble, they called it, and so nobody was able to work at their home arenas at that time. But then, like, my position didn't come back when they started to play in the arenas again, and that really broke my heart. I just felt like I really lost a part of my identity because I'd done my job for so long. It was just that was who I was. In a lot of ways, I didn't expect to start blubbering. But yeah, the fact I'm crying just shows like how much I've been holding back. I've been really bullshitting myself for a long time. So of course I, bullshit others. But yeah, I've had some really good good experiences, and before the vaccine stuff happened, um I just didn't have a position to go back to with the jazz, and my crewers, they they tried to offer me a side position. It wasn't as consistent as my former gig. But they were willing to have me work like a handful of games. Um, but I got lucky and I found this new gig. It just happened to be 100 miles from my house, but it paid really well. So, this is still before vaccines came out. And so it's pretty interesting because I had a few months where from like March until December, where I was only able to do one of my longtime gigs, from March to December, but that was a really low paying gig. I mean, again, I worked for my local PBS station for 15 years and I made, you know, got all the way up to $14 an hour. Um, but I actually loved that job, like I would always scoff at how little they paid us in the studio, but I mean, I really loved it. It was awesome. And um I loved the people I worked with, and the projects were always really diverse and interesting, um and I really bought into it. I really believed like we were doing important work, and so I was able to stay busy through the the rest of 2020. March to December, I was able to stay quite busy. Um, but I did lose a big part of what I felt was my identity, um, losing my basketball gig. And so I was very fortunate to find a new gig with a fitness company and help them to produce some live shows. And it was awesome because we were doing I was working 5 days a week and doing like 6, 7, 8 shows a day. Um so I met hundreds of new people from December 2020 to I think September of 2021, before that whole operation shut down. Um, so yeah, I got to have this devastating blow and then get a super high thinking I'd found an awesome new gig. And then we all lost that. Hundreds of us lost that gig altogether. And then the mandates. Uh no, I don't have to be vaccinated to go to the grocery store. I don't even have to wear a mask in public anymore. But, yeah, there's still a lot of companies that I wouldn't be able to work for right now because they're requiring proof of boosters. So, now folks are getting their fourth dose, and it's really scary to me because I just feel like these are folks that wanna be doing the right thing. But I think they've been guilted into doing the right thing or what they believe is the right thing, and, they don't really see the pain that's put on other people, and they see someone like me who's not jabbed as being selfish, and I don't wanna be ashamed of that anymore, but I've been really ashamed. I've been ashamed of my decision, because of all the bully talk. Um, so it's kept me away from social media. I've just been observing from a distance. I had to stop looking at Facebook for like 2 weeks. I had to just stop. So, and that's when I started these videos because I just was allowing myself to continue to feel guilty in a way, like to feel ashamed that I couldn't tell my friends that I wasn't jabbed, and they wanted to go to a restaurant that required it, and it was one of the few in Salt Lake because Utah didn't really have a mandate for it. Like, Utah allowed private companies to make those decisions on their own, and, uh, so there was just one restaurant in town, that I can recall that had this requirement very early on, as soon as the vax came out. Um, this place, the Bayou, uh, they required vax, and my girlfriends wanted to go there, and these are my friends of, like, 20 years or more. We met well, they some of them have known each other longer, since before I moved back to Utah, but, um, I've known these girls for, like, 20 years, 21 years, and I don't know why, but I was like, "Yeah, I got the jab. Yeah, I'll go." And then I realized, "Oh my god, what am I doing? Like, I can't go. I don't have the card." And so I just had to tell them, like, guys, I don't know why, but I lied. I guess I just felt dumb." And they were like, "Well, yeah, you are stupid for lying to us, but we can go somewhere else." You know? So I think a lot of my fears trump the reality of the situation sometimes. I think a lot of times people in my life would accept me if I would, acknowledge, like, my truth. But I've definitely been really, really scared of certain people's judgments of me. Um, and that's just such a shitty place to be. And so when it comes to like having love and acceptance, um, I do see the need also to create boundaries for the people that just really are toxic, that um, they're not going to support the work that you're really capable of doing. So don't let those people take your energy away. Um, and that this is just what I'm trying to tell myself right now. And I think there's been some really good uh, folks in my life coming through that are showing me, like, yeah, we might disagree, but I still really love you and I still want to have the relationship. And I've been explaining better my own mental health issues, and that's very helpful because I've always had a hard time admitting when I need help until it's like a dire emergency. So I really appreciate that I have this forum here, that I'm comfortable enough to begin to articulate these things. Maybe one day I'll start sharing the links to people I actually know. But for now, I'm keeping a record for myself. So before this gets up to an hour, I am going to cut it. But I didn't script the sob story. I've been feeling um, really sad for my own uh, losses, but also just for there's so many folks out there that they've had to make a decision under duress, under coercion because they're going to lose their jobs. And I was really privileged enough to be able to say, no, I won't do that and I won't work for you. And it wasn't devastating to us financially, like I know it is for so many others because of COVID. Before there were ever mandates, before people ever lost their jobs because of that, you know, a lot of people's jobs just went away. And so I don't want to just feel sorry for myself. I really want to have some understanding and empathy for what others are going through. And there's a lot of people that had it hell of a lot worse than me. I got so fortunate to find this new gig even for a little while, because it gave me a new sense of my my ability. Like I just felt so empowered, um, to be able to jump into a new, really rough, complicated circus style situation of a job. It was like so odd, but I loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved that it was messy. I loved that, I would get frustrated because then I would be allowed to solve problems and solve problems with people, with different people, and learn how to talk to a dozen different types of people again. And so when that job went away in September, I was crushed again. um, but uh, then in October, my son was bitten by a dog on Halloween. And so that took me into a entirely different space to where I was just so grateful he didn't lose his eye. He was bitten around his eye, but finally now, uh 5 months later, the scar is looking really good and it's healing well, and he doesn't seem to be traumatized about it, and he can talk about that, but he still loves dogs, and um he's just a super sweet kid. And so I just have many, many blessings in my life, but it doesn't mean that I don't get completely crushed and debilitated. So I just think, yeah, we have to be able to listen to the trans kid tell their truth and the black woman tell their truth, and everybody. We have to listen to all these people as a collective, and then they have to be able to listen to us, and we've got to be able to find these common grounds. And so um I think it's really easy to find ourselves in an echo chamber. So I just hope I'm not ever uh doing that. I hope that I am always trying to find the ways in which I was, maybe not quite there yet, but inching towards. It's like the Family Guy had a little skit about the game of equality, I think. It was like, you never win, you just do a little better each time. And that to me is fine. We're never gonna win this game. We're all gonna die. Anything that happens after death is conjecture. You can have your faith, and I respect your faith, but it is all conjecture. Um, so that's the definition of faith. So if we want to do a little bit better every time, we're gonna have to continue to go through these cycles. I feel like we're on a long, drawn out, rough cycle. But perhaps, yeah, with perhaps the challenge, the constraint, it's gonna make us stronger again. Perhaps it means we're gonna have to face some really hard shit in the future. Like, this is just a warm up, and we're gonna have to be running the gauntlet. And there's preparedness in the knowledge. In the knowledge that you can get through the tough times, and you can connect with people that support you and give you energy. And it is important to listen to the counter. But I would say keep your distance if you need to, so that you're not so up close to it that you allow yourself to get that energy drained from you. Because if you find that you're getting triggered by something, that probably means that's where you need to do some work. And for me, that's definitely been indicated. So that's what this work is for me. You're watching all the ugly tears, the the messy hair, the slumming look, because most days if I'm not reading, I'm working out in the yard or cleaning up the house. So I'm not working outside of the house right now. So yeah, I'm not trying to be all pretty just to be some persona on camera. This is the real deal. And then one day you'll be surprised at how nice I clean up. But I thank you for your time, and if you stuck it through this video, ooh, man, you're a hero. But please, if you have anything to say, please help me to continue just to do this. Just give me some good positive energy, just some feedback behind it. Even if you disagree with most of what I say, if you're watching it, I really do appreciate it, because it's I know this work is important for me, and I know it's important for others. I know it's important for my kids, because this is helping me mentally, and that will only serve them better. So thank you, and look forward to chatting again real soon. Love ya.